Record. Okay. Okay. Friends, it hasn't been easy. Nothing is broadcasting there, and you're not going to... You're getting it? Oh, you're getting it. What? I really didn't understand. All right. Sorry for this delay. There's new equipment here, and this man without the fifth ray. What, dear?
And
What happened now? I'm online now with people.
Are you?
Okay. All right. For some reason, this is just not streaming. Even though we have a continued discussion of the second initiation. So, do you see anything? No. Yes. Do you see print?
I seem to have all kinds of dates.
Okay, friends,
from
let me
29.
just say a few things. And this is being recorded, and for some reason, I'm not able to stream.
Well, it is streaming. Yes, the sound is going.
What do you get?
Sound is going.
The sound is going. Yes,
Yeah.
the sound is going, but no picture, right? And no picture of the text. All right. I'm going to rely upon someone here to give me a hand when the time is right. All right. So I'm very sorry and I hesitate to even move this now, because at least I got to the point where I can see the script, if I can call it a script. Now, let's continue with our work of the second degree. An advanced degree, even though it is not considered to be so. And let's see if I'm... Hello, hello, hello. Test, test.
Okay, Veronica has been writing the same thing. Veronica, we don't have the screen at the moment either, so only the sound is going and...
The sound is going, right?
Yes, so we don't know, are we getting the screen?
I don't... If I start to fool around with this screen, I cannot get the picture, but do you hear my voice? You do? No? Okay. It's very, 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 very strange.
Michael, why did you send this? I cannot get the picture, but do you hear my voice?
What? Now I can hear your voice in a second, yeah.
Yeah, but why did you send the message?
Okay, because she does hear the voice, right? Okay, good. All right, so rather than waste time and try to make it work correctly, which I wish I could, there's some very strange thing. The keyboard is in the sun, and it seems to be not responding, and there's no way for me to move it at the moment. I have to wait until the sun moves, okay? Now, by the way, you will see a recording with text of this when we finish talking. You will see it's just not being transmitted, that's all. That's the only problem. Okay.
And
Yeah.
it is not too hot in the sun?
Dear, I just don't know. All right, so there's a few of you watching. No, dear, I don't want to do anything. No, that's good. Everything's fine.
Well, it's
Yes, but please, there's nothing I can do. Okay, just let it be. We have to... It's very hard for my type of person to leave well enough alone. But as long as you can hear something, and you can, on the... you do hear something. Good. All right. Let's say a few more things about the second initiation, which is the one that is really facing disciples in the world today. We've had so much popular psychology, which is helping people get through their complexes, their psychological difficulties, all kinds of malfunctions within their kama monastic psychological state. So psychology has advanced very much and is helping many people towards the second initiation. When we are second degree initiates, we are what is called probationary initiates. Not a true initiate from the perspective of the third degree. Only when, from the hierarchical perspective, only when we have taken the third initiation are we to be considered truly initiates from the standpoint of the hierarchy. So the first initiation is called, interestingly enough, Lemurian initiation. The Lemurian period lasted a long time, many millions of years, and and overlapped with the Atlantean period. The early Atlantean period, says the Tibetan, was about 12 million years ago. And about 1 million years ago, the Aryan race, or the Aryan fifth root race, began in earnest. And the second initiation is often called the Atlantean initiation because it really focuses on the astral body, where so many people are still focused. But look, the fact that people are focused in the astral body does not mean at all that they are ready to take this second initiation, because remember, what is required is spiritual intelligence and mental illumination. And the majority of people, especially those who are individualized on this chain, the earth chain, are very far yet from those qualifications. So humanity is primarily emotional, and it's going to take a long time before the control of the emotional body can really be brought into effect. Now, what is happening in the age of Aquarius, interestingly enough, is the fifth ray is coming in very strongly. We sometimes think of Aquarius as if it's the seventh ray sign. It has Uranus and has a lot of seventh ray associated with it. But through the constellation Aquarius itself, it's the fifth ray that comes. And even though Leo right now is the sign that predominantly expresses the fifth ray, that's going to change very soon. And the age of Aquarius is going to be very scientific. As a matter of fact, I was thinking that France, with its fifth ray soul, may well discover the soul scientifically in the age of Aquarius. The French have that destiny that they will discover scientifically the soul. They have a Pisces sensitive soul and a fifth ray. Pisces fifth ray soul is just perfect. So during the age of Aquarius, when Pisces is being poured into the water pot of the water carrier, this will be the time not just to talk about the soul, but to actually discover it in terms of light, frequency, vibration, the higher planes, all those things. You know, we live at a time when if you just say, well, I believe this, well, some people may believe it or may not believe it. But if we can prove it, that's another matter. Demonstrate it, that's another matter, and that is coming. So anyway, the real first initiation is the third initiation, and it is the first solar initiation. And he says, look, I want you to think about this because this is a new angle on all of this. So basically, the majority of initiates in the world at this time are what is called probationary initiates. probationary initiates. Just like there are probationary disciples, and you become a disciple, so there are probationary initiates, and you become one day the true initiate. When the disciple, says the Tibetan here, has taken the third initiation, he is no longer technically an accepted disciple, even though he still remains in a master's group until he has taken the fourth initiation. So I'm pointing out these technicalities, he says, so that there may be clarity and proportion in your thinking. All right. Now, I'm not exactly racing along here, am I? I have about, 11 programs or something on the second initiation, and I've reached program number 2. All right, well, that's just encouragement for all of us to think ahead and maybe listen to some of these. Are there any questions or thoughts about this particular difficult initiation? Especially difficult for people with a second ray soul, a fourth ray soul, or a sixth ray soul, and a first ray soul. All right, maybe even more difficult than the fourth initiation, because by that time you're really seeing clearly and you know what it's all about. Here at the second degree, we are still fighting with glamour, we might say. Anything you want to say about this or think about this? I'm so sorry that I'm sure I'm one press of the button away from being able to actually broadcast this, and I hate to press any other buttons at this point, because at least I can talk to you. Now, here it is in Finland, and we're all cooking. We are absolutely melting here. Maybe the climate is changing. We don't know. Okay.
Michael.
Yes, dear.
Yeah, I was just thinking about this.
Yes, go ahead.
As we have heard that very often people are mixing the the second initiation into the third. Oh, I'm sorry. I have to take my headphones away
here,
because
I can't wait till the cool of the evening comes, and everybody goes outside and breathes that great breath without the meltdown. Okay.
Yes, so I was
Go ahead, dear.
saying, but I had to take the headphones away because I was hearing the sound which is behind, and that's why it was mixing me. That when we have heard that people are mixing these two initiations, the second and the fourth, and I was thinking that maybe then one is thinking that one has gone the fourth degree through, because when going through the second, because that is this first major great initiation along that line that one has been just walking towards the path of initiation, and one does not have so much knowledge yet. But then in the fourth degree, I think the initiate is just quiet and silent.
Yes.
Knowing so much, and even though then in the fourth degree one is facing the dweller, which is related to the dweller of humanity, so much huger thing.
You do a lot of facing of the dweller at the third degree. Mars and Vulcan are fighting it out. Spiritual will and personality desire are fighting, and you resolve many issues at the third degree after what Master D.K. calls a fearful conflict. However...
Yes, I was continuing.
You were continuing. Yes, go ahead.
In that sense, it made me... Because I have met some people who have been declared that they have gone through the fourth.
Yeah.
And looking their lives, of course one can never say from anyone's status, but just looking the expression of spiritual life in them, you see that it may not be the case, and then one can wonder why then people are so eager to put themselves on fourth degree. It is about this kind of clamor in us about the pain, that we want to expand the meaning of one's own pain. And if we would only walk our eyes open and see how much pain it is in the world, in humanity, in such a depth, to have the proportion of that or one's own painful experiences, that it is still in whole humanity, even though humanity itself has not gone through, and those suffering people has certainly not gone through the fourth degree or second degree, and their amount of pain seemed to be much more to bear. So this whole relationship to pain is one of the things to be thought through in oneself. So what the pain really means, and how much pain it's going to be then in the fourth degree, and what kinds of pains they are, to what kinds of things they are related to.
It's related to also what we call the dark night of the soul, and the dark night of the soul. And they say, it says, upon the soul of the initiate Jesus descended the whole fate and plight and misery of humanity when he was on the cross. Not in his mind, but upon his soul. It all dawned, and that this is the true dark night of the soul. There are some dark nights of the soul involving personal depression and worthlessness and all the rest of it, recrimination and self-accusation, which occur around the time of the second degree. But people just don't have the experience. By the time the fourth degree is approached, it's a very impersonal kind of thing, and you're taking on the weight of humanity's problem rather than your own. So it's quite a different thing, though let us say it is related. Now some of you, I see that, you are wondering what's happening here, and you're only hearing the voice, and that is absolutely true, and we're only projecting the voice. Sorry, Asha and others, but you will be able to get the full projection, because at least I think I am recording it. So meanwhile, let us just dare to get new equipment before an event when Mercury is going retrograde, which it is now, really? And then duck for cover. Here it goes. Okay, so anyway, the fourth degree is not our issue. We know it is a great liberative moment. The second degree, the control of the astral body, the reorientation of desire, the entry of love into the astral body from the Buddhic plane and from the love petals and all of that, that's our issue. And hard enough it is. As a matter of fact, he says, in some ways, it's even harder than the fourth degree, because you're so mature by the time you're taking the fourth degree. But let's remember this crazy idea that is probably very true, that you can take the second, third, and fourth degree in the same life, and probably will, or in the next life, after you take the second degree. You take the third and the fourth together. So things get very compressed. And by that time, it's not just a question of, do we have the Christ consciousness? Have we created a chalice? It's a question of the crisis of expression. There are two kinds of crises Master DK talks about. The crisis of opportunity, where you have to recognize you have a spiritual opportunity facing you. Will you choose correctly? Or the crisis of expression coming later in life. And I have a feeling they are related to the two Saturn returns. It's as if we can look at the crisis of opportunity occurring around the time of the first Saturn return and that crisis of expression around the time of the second Saturn return. More like when you're 58 years old or something like that.
What is then the crisis for the third Saturn return?
The third Saturn return is 87 years old. The crisis of
crisis of walking,
falling apart. You know, I know a few people who are making it through their second Saturn return, but they aren't moving fast. Although there are exceptions. Now, look, there's a lot of commotion on the astral plane, and everything is hitting the astral plane at once. So stupendous forces are at work there that we have to learn how to balance. Libra is so important in creating balance on the astral plane. So what's causing all of this commotion? First of all, it's something called the uprising cry of humanity. That's one thing. You know, humanity is sick and tired of living the way it has and is longing for something better. Then the next thing is new inflowing spiritual energies from the Shambhala impacts and from the approaching hierarchy and the approaching Christ and the spiritual and Aquarius and all that. These spiritual energies are coming and they're making an impact on astral matter. And the third thing is very interesting, the retreating forces of evil. They are endeavoring to make a last-ditch, desperate stand upon the astral plane, and they're doing a good job of it. You know, they are really trying to stop things. In a way, they know they cannot stop the coming of the hierarchy and the coming of the Christ, but they're going to do everything they can to delay it, and that's why they are called the forces of obstruction. So we're faced with this incredible astral turmoil, and if you're taking the second degree, you've got to deal with it. Humanity is clamoring for a better life, and maybe they want things that are no good for them, but they think it's a better life. There's new inflowing energies. Humanity doesn't know how to handle these things, even emotionally, and these bad guys, the forces, the retreating forces of evil. Isn't that interesting kind of adjective? Retreating forces of evil. And they say that those, when they come together, an unparalleled vortex of energy of which all disciples are going to be aware, especially if you're preparing for the second initiation. So let's not exaggerate. There were not so many in the Tibetans group who were taking the second initiation in that particular life, but he was preparing them for future possibilities in their future life. Just a few were taking it, and one was being trained for the third degree, and DK said to him, "You remind me of myself when I was being trained for the third degree," you know. So what a whirlpool we are dealing with, and we have to maintain our center. Now, you know, maybe you remember, if you've read in Discipleship in the New Age, that your solar plexus center, which is connected with the astral plane, has actually two major points in it. One is ruled by Mars, and is a lower desire, an ordinary desire, and the other is ruled by Neptune, and has a lot to do with lifting up the energies in aspiration. So it's like the personality-soul relationship in a way, going on right there in the solar plexus. So if we are a real aspirant, and we remember that every aspirant has taken the first initiation, then we're going to be working on that higher of the two centers under Neptune. And if you turn to page 517, which I don't dare do right now, okay, I just want to keep the text in front of me, frankly. then if you turn to that page, you will see that for the ordinary person, Mars rules the solar plexus. And you can figure out why. It's all about personality desire. But Neptune is a sacrificial planet. And for the aspirant, for the disciple, even for the initiate, it's Neptune that rules the solar plexus center. So before we take the second initiation, Neptune has to have awakened the higher solar plexus center. And we have to be responding to Neptune when it comes to our solar plexus. So when you have a good Neptune in your chart, it can mean a lot of different things. It can mean, you're in total delusion and you're an addict. Yeah, it can mean that. It can mean that you're straightening out your desire life, so your desires are higher. It can also mean that you are receiving energy from the intuitional world. Neptune, a planet of intuition, a planet that relates to the Buddhic or fourth plane. Blavatsky says a very interesting thing about Neptune. She says Neptune is the god of reasoning. Well, you say, hey, what about Mercury? Isn't Mercury the god of reasoning? But then, what is reasoning? What is intellect? Is it just mind? Is it just cogitation? It has to do with a deeper factor of intuition. Pure reason. Neptune is the god of pure reason, not just of reasoning. Okay, so any questions or anything up to this point? I wish it were possible. If somebody who's listening, and there are a hearty few that are listening at this point as they stare into the blackness and hear this voice going blah, 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 if you have a question, just put it in the chat box. It says Top Chat, and I will do my best to bring it to the attention. It's live chat of the group, and we can discuss it. I may not see what you write immediately, but I will see it and bring it there. Okay, so anyway, Neptune is involved with storms. What can happen. What's that movie we just saw to you about these people who sailed in a sailboat that had a motor from Tahiti or some other place like that to California?
This the young couple.
Yeah, and they ran into a hurricane. Oh boy. And when you saw the ocean around them, you could realize that Neptune is the god of storms too. Now, interesting. Neptune has a lot to do with the fourth plane, correct? That fourth, Buddhic plane, right? But Indra is the ruler of the fourth plane.
What do you mean in the fourth plane?
Buddhic plane.
Buddhic
Neptune
plane.
and the Buddhic plane.
Why do you say that?
Because it is one of the major planets of intuition. Neptune,
you make that
the fourth
sense.
plane, Buddhic. And Indra is the storm god. That's one of the appellations of Indra, the creator of storms. It's a mixture of air and water, and that's basically what
Indra,
facing.
the god of the sky.
Yeah.
And the winds.
And the sky, what could be more terrifying? Well, probably there were many things.
But
you're out there in a little boat, and here comes this hurricane. Hurricane, whatever it was, Norman or whatever, it was the 1980s, and it was a fascinating movie. Very Neptunian in a way, of course. The man and a woman, the man was swept off the boat, and he disappeared. But the woman hallucinated him for the next 40 days. And his hallucination somehow guided her through. It was an amazing story, very sad in a way, but she did make it somehow.
Yeah.
He said, "Go below now, it's too rough," and just a second later, he was just swept off the boat. You can imagine a wall of water 30 or 40 feet high, what are you going to do? All right. Now, look, I have, we've done 5 pages and we have 35 to go. So we're really racing along here, and I'm going to give this to you somehow so you can study it, right? Okay. Now, at the second initiation, yeah, look, I gave a little lecture at the conference on the 5 Ds. I don't know if anybody remembers them. Discipline, dispassion, discrimination, decentralization, and detachment. And you saw what I was doing. I was going from the bottom to the top. Now, you can apply various of those words to various levels of the personality or soul, but decentralization is a big one about the personality. People who are narcissistic, who are egotistical, they look out into the field of consciousness and they see only themselves, and the world is revolving around them. So they are not decentralized. Eventually, Leo is all about decentralization. As a matter of fact, Leo is the sign that inclines one to be super centralized, I'm the most important thing in the world, and also later to be decentralized in what is called the relinquished point. You give, you're the point and something disappears, so then God is everywhere. There's that old Pascal, definition about God. God is I hope I don't mess it up. God is an intelligible being whose center, whose circumference is nowhere, and whose center is everywhere. God is an intelligible being whose circumference or boundaries are nowhere, and whose center is everywhere. So in a sense, wherever we are, it is the center of the universe. Okay. Yes. What happened? A message. Okay. Okay, Asha. What were those? Thanks. If you could alert me, that'd be great. When it comes, Asha. Yes. What were those ages you mentioned, please, for the first, second, and third Saturn return? Well, okay. It depends on what sign Saturn is in, but generally, at the age of 28 and a half or 29, you experience your first Saturn return. At the age of 57, 58, 58 and a half, you experience your second Saturn return. And then around the age of 87, or maybe a little more, that's the third Saturn return. A lot of people don't live to the third Saturn return, You got to be pretty dry. I've noticed that very dry people live longer. So someone tells you you're all wet, it's not a good sign. All right. So those are the 3 Saturn return cycles, Asha. And they each signify something different. The first Saturn return, individual competence, finding your place in the world and really being able to function as an autonomous human being who is not an imitation of others. Second Saturn return, you're about to truly begin your most spiritual cycle. And you have summarized with the degree of wisdom much that has passed before you. You got to watch out about that period, because the soul sometimes looks down, evaluates the situation, and can take you out of incarnation if it's not, in the soul's eyes, a profitable incarnation. So people have to live through the year 63, which is the most difficult year in the 63rd year. I was kind of cavalier about the whole thing, and I got hit exactly at that year with a lot of difficulties. Then the third Saturn return, you've completed your spiritual cycle, and if you're still ready to go, you're going to enter, the life of pure being. It's a different thing. It's finally a very impersonal period, but most people would have a lot of physical difficulties by that time, so you have to take care of those things. Yeah. So, astrology is significant in terms of the cycles. When is Uranus opposing itself? When are your Saturn squares? When do you have a Jupiter return? At the age of 84, you have a Uranus return. All that, those are archetypally significant moments, and you have to figure out what do they mean for you. Okay. So anyway, we have to develop here at the second initiation. He tells us, watch out, because this is the time when people tend to focus on their solar plexus. And if you do, it carries with it a definite danger. And so all disciples are enjoined to exercise control over the emotional nature. Now, let's see, control the body of emotion, for the waves that rise upon the stormy seas of life shut out the sun, engulf the swimmer, and render all plans futile. That is the third of the pieces of advice he gave, starting in a treatise on white magic on page 473. So that's where it begins, and he says, look, if you follow these 15 pieces of advice, simple as they seem, it'll make you into a master, into an adept. So all of us are enjoined, charged, demanded, control the body of emotion, which we all know is harder than it may seem. After all, it's only emotions. Okay, so just to finish this, then I'll ask you again. Now here his final statement in this from Dinah 2, 122 to 123. A decentralized attitude. Okay, decentralization. Decentralized attitude as regards personality. Ashas says she just turned 63. Hey, you made it. It's that 63rd year on the way up. But that whole period is 7 times 9. The soul looks in and says, what is the profit? What is the spiritual profit of this incarnation? And as we all know, all the soul has to do is speak the word, the mind will repeat that word, and you're going to drop your body. So the soul is holding the strings. The solar angel is. I have definite experience with normal forces would have taken me out, but internal forces, of course with the help of my wife, kept me in this grueling incarnational slavery. I'm still here. Okay, but you know what I mean. The will is really involved. And to a man called RVB, Victor Fox, he was Alice Bailey's secretary. DK begins his instruction to him, you have made more progress than both your soul and I thought you could. And I thought to myself, goodness, this is monitoring the situation. DK is making an assessment. What is your high water mark here? How far can you go? And your soul, which is a brilliant being, long ago a human being and already trained on the star Sirius, is making a assessment too about what your high water mark are. But here you the monad, expressing as the soul in incarnation, you went further. You did more than they thought. So much is in our hands, and we don't even realize it. It's not just a deterministic situation. Right, dear?
Well, I was thinking, why did you say that the monad...
To me, everything is the monad.
Yes, everything is about the monad,
Yeah.
but is it not the soul in incarnation?
Yeah,
Is
the
the
extension.
determining unit who somehow was able to make more advancement than it was.
That's right.
estimated.
And the soul in incarnation really is the monad. See, in a way, look,
Everything
from your
is
own
about
maps. I
monad.
wish I could turn to your wonderful
but the
map.
point of that is that because one cannot have the awareness of monad in full sense only when we advance enough and we are freed soul.
And it's not in full stage. It's not the awareness of the monad in full stage. It's not the monad on its own plane. It's the monad disguised as the triad, disguised as the soul, disguised as the soul in incarnation, and it's essentially you. You, who are the monad in extension, did more than your master and your solar angel thought you could do.
Because, Michael, I think that when we think that way, it puts the will like in the distance. But if we say that way, that it is absolutely according to our will.
Yeah,
so
very
that
much.
we decide ourselves to take, as it is said, that the initiation is the what is the word?
Self-initiated. You are initiate before you are initiated, and you're the one that initiated the process of becoming the initiate.
So self-forced situation.
Self-forced.
Self-forced. So that's why I'm thinking that in relationship to that statement, because when we put together that solar angel is so vast in his consciousness and the point, perspective that this entity is looking forth, having this millions of years evolution, and then also the master has a totally different point of view than we, but the self-will, which is implemented, even though there is a connection to monad, but still here, down here is the point that we can make so huge leaps at the moment that to just to be like the Buddha was saying, be vigilant, rely upon yourself.
Rely upon yourself. What self?
Yes,
that's
is
so interesting.
Exactly.
Doesn't mean just rely upon your personal self. You are much deeper and bigger than all of that. And you are the monad in extension. You're the monad in the lower worlds. And you can make a difference that even your master or your solar angel cannot foretell. So that really speaks about determinism, doesn't it? A lot of people, they can't see beyond the idea that everything is absolutely determined. But what if there is such a being that there is no other being than it? So what is going to force that being to do anything? And what if you are that being, than which there is no other?
You know, this whole idea of this kind of concepts that we read them and then we maybe contemplate for a while, and we can have those statements that we just say because we know that it is true. But what is interesting in that is that how one is really implementing it through the whole system, in that sense that it has the brain connection, the touch within the brain consciousness, and one decides, the incarnated soul decides there, okay, I will just push through this mountain and do it. Because in principle one can do whatever, but there are always the laws that if we have not been fulfilling enough, we cannot control. We cannot control the forces the way that I want to fly now. In my mind I can fly. But I cannot lift my physical equipment.
You're not yet Master Morya, who when he visited Blavatsky came floating through the air, just gliding down and then landed. I mean, but a master is a master of the lower 18. By the way, we can be seen now, correct? Well, I see. Just hit it again. Do refresh. I decided to take a chance. And anyway, hey, so sorry everybody, but here we are. And, and now, even though, now you can see the screen.
What is the secret of this?
What is the secret? What is the secret of this? Get a keyboard that's a lot better than this one. That's the secret.
So then there is the wire. Some problem with the wire.
No, it's a wireless. This is what... Anyway, but here we are. Now you can see, okay? So this is the question. We can make a difference. And nobody is going to tell you that you can't do it, because you can surprise your master. You can surprise your solar angel, which is already a member of a different hierarchy. In other words...
At 5 o'clock we
Okay. So now we're going to have the 5 o'clock mantram, and do I dare even... No, we know it by heart, right? Or it's the great invocation, right?
Yes, this is our sacred pentagram approach.
Okay.
So we align with the full moon, the coming full moon. We align with the sisters and brothers of the blue rose. Align with the triangle of the blue rose. And even though we don't know the sisters under this name, we still know about the names. We go via the name, and that's why this is called the triangles of the will. It's a new experiment. We align with the sacred fivefold pattern of Venus in the skies. How Lakshmi is dancing this sacred mystery rose upon the sky. So we see this symbolism of the blue pentagram and the blue rose in the center of the pentagram. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. In our minds we bless the sisters and the brothers. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, Master DK says that if we use this great invocation with regularity and with understanding, of course, we cannot help but change our lives. Our lives will dramatically and for the better change. But understanding is really important, because just like Master Morya says, he says, look, if you're going to take vitamins, take them with consciousness. Don't just throw some pills in your mouth and hope, Think about what you're doing. Because when you concentrate on what you are saying, it's much more powerful than what you're doing. Otherwise, you have Maya. You have just physical plane action and what he calls that unthinking emotional mess. Okay.
Yeah, in symbolism, when we think about karma, and karma is always indicating and symbolizing the tail. The serpent who is eating the tail, its own tail. The animal who has the tail is the karma. Why the karma stands so long? Comparing to that if we put some spiritual thing forward, why does not it stay long? What is the reason behind that? Because when we use the words wrongly, we very often it is said in such a burst of emotions, and in that sense also the intention. So all of those forces which gather around the words, and they will carry forth into the ages to ages, is because they have been sent forth with the force, and also it is strengthened all the time. These substances are strengthened all the time in humanity. But when we are trying to put the spiritual thing forward, is that we are like on and off, on and off, on and off. Oh, I remember, yes, I have to hold this in my mind. And then I fall again. Oh, yes, I have to keep that in my mind. And that's why there is not the power. TK talks about that when we are putting the mantras forward, that the power of the mantra depends on the sender.
Yeah. And that's why when we do our triangles, what does he say? Intensity of feeling will determine the effectiveness of the triangle.
Yeah, so our experiment now, how our group has been divided into threes, it is an experiment because you don't know each other. Of course, you know in the soul. But normally, and I think that's why Master is talking, that we should find those that we love, and with them we would make the triangle, because then there is the mutual feeling towards that person, and it is holding. But the triangles are or will have not been even descended yet, because we are so weak in our will. So we are just experimenting via our work at the moment.
Yes. And of course you can develop stronger love between people who may not have very much in the beginning by using the triangle.
That's right.
So it's not just only looking for those for whom you already have that feeling, but developing it with others.
Absolutely.
That, he's really keen on that. He says this work must go on. Must go on. Okay, well, just finishing off this little section here is how we have to be before the second initiation, and will be the result of that, a decentralized attitude as regards personality reactions. Yes, the personality is reacting, okay, and a steadily deepening love of humanity. And notice that was one of the requirements of the first initiation. But here it is, steadily deepening, will safeguard disciples at this stage, because there's a lot that can go wrong at this stage. People get a big head, they feel powerful, they feel ambitious, they start making exaggerated claims about themselves, they fall into an egotistical state. So decentralization regarding the personality and a steadily deepening love of humanity will safeguard disciples at this stage, the stage of seeking to fit themselves for the first or the second initiation. And some of these things, well, how could we even estimate what is the nature of the Christ's love for humanity? How would we even know or feel or be able to register what that must be? Because it has to be deepening all the time.
Well, that when we think about love, there is something in love that it has like only possibility to grow. And when sometimes think about those moments when the love within is just sweeping through you, and it is unbearable. It's like there is no grown tool, equipment to carry that on. Just that it melts you and it overwhelms you, it consumes you. And from that experience one is understanding just tiny, shadow or tiny reflection about the love of the Christ, which is so enormous that it would kill.
Yeah.
That kind of type of fiery love, that, as TK talks about, that do you dare to take it? Do you dare to consume yourself within it?
We're told the masters always have to modulate their energy when they are in our presence, lest we are the ones who suffer from too great a radiation from them. So, it kind of reminds you of how we have to be when we're talking to people who have no idea about what we've been into for years and years and years. They live in a completely different mental, psychological world, and we have to register that and modulate accordingly. Like Master Morya says, speak according to the level of the person you're speaking with, maybe a little higher. But, don't shoot so high they can't possibly understand what you're talking about. And the same with the Christ, And you see that with Master DK. He says, you couldn't understand what if I were to describe this, it would be beyond you to understand, so I won't waste the time to do so. And in all humility, we have to just accept that is the way it is. Okay. So, So like I say, if any questions come up here, we're trying to train the emotional body. It resists training. It is, do I dare try something here? It is the only unified body in our personality. Do you know what I mean by that? Look at the mind. Higher mind, lower mind. Look at the physical nature. Etheric, physical. Etheric and dense physical. Split. And because it's split, it's less powerful. Divide and conquer, right? Astral body, straight through, no split. And that's because our solar logos is very astrally polarized, though trying to do better, like Sirius is. And our planetary logos is even more astrally polarized and in the middle of big conflicts. So it's so powerful that this emotional level that we're encountering, that we could just get swept away so easily. Let me know, Catherine, if anybody has any questions, etc. Okay, so anyway, he's giving us meditations. In the Dyna 2 book, Discipleship of the New Age, Volume 2, he said, look, I'm leaving now. Okay, the year is 1948 or 49, but I've given you enough meditations in these 6 meditations to last you the rest of your life. So they are so powerful and so potent for the group that will practice them. And here he's talking about, look at this, those of you who know with certainty that you are being specifically prepared for the second initiation, maybe people would know that, would do well to follow this meditation, meditation 1, for 1 week in each month of the year. So that's when he's preparing, he had to say goodbye for various reasons, and Alice Bailey's term of service was coming to an end, and there was a lot that they had to finish up before she would pass on. So we could, and meditation 1 looks so easy. It just looks like an easy meditation, but he's saying here, this is preparing you for the second initiation. And do any of us really know that our next initiation is thus and so, and what we have to do in order to come closer to fulfilling the requirements? Because he says every true disciple is being prepared for initiation. So in a way we should go inside, and try to understand what it is we're really being prepared for, whether it's in this life or the next or the next. He says, after the age of 50, it's a lot easier for the soul to work with the body. And I assume that a lot of these initiations that are not recapitulations, you know what I mean? You took an initiation and you go through a reflection of that in the present life. It's a recapitulation. A lot of them are occurring after the age of 50. But, you don't want to have them when you're too old, because then that energy coming in can take you right out, unless that's the plan. Okay. Now here is what I'm oftentimes quoting, and I think it's something we want to have in mind, because we have here the idea that this is all about the emotional body, the second degree. And the solar plexus is being raised to the heart, and it's an emotional initiation that's ruled by the sixth ray. But look at what's said here. Initiation is never taken unless the intuition is becoming active. Okay? Spiritual instinct, the lowest aspect of the intuition, indicates readiness for the first initiation. Something in you prompts you to go further into the unseen worlds and believe they are real and work with them. An illumined mind and spiritual intelligence are the definite sign that a man can take the second initiation. Now this is in relation to an emotional initiation. See, all these mental factors are needed to give you a point at which you can stand with objectivity about your emotional reactions. We need that. Scorpio, by the way, is so Mercurian in a certain sense. It's ruling the second initiation, and it gives you a chance to really stand back and see what's happening as the observer. Whilst spiritual perception, what is that? Or intuitive instinct signifies preparedness for the transfiguration, the third initiation. So right there on Dyna 2, page 267, are very important words that summarize what we have to pass through and will pass through. Now, so you have to go deep within yourself, and you have to say, if you're careless, no initiation. If you're over concerned about it, it's the only thing you think about, no initiation. Somehow that noble middle path where you respect the requirements, but you're not overly, concerned, and where you are careful and not careless, this is the way to go. And we are needed. Initiates are needed now. As a matter of fact, they're so needed that DK tells us in a short time there will be the need for many initiates of the 5th degree. So a lot more masters are going to have to be made. Now, isn't it interesting, I was just thinking about irony about it, how the mafia picks up the language of initiation and uses it in a completely different way.
Which way?
You become a made man. In other words, you go through a ceremony, you're made. You're
How
made.
do you know
you're
that?
accepted into the... Well, in my old days, how do I know that? Watching enough Joe Pesci movies. Anyway, there are negative types of initiation. And Heinrich Himmler, he had a whole castle for the SS, and it was an occult organization, and they went through various rites and rituals and all that kind of thing. Nothing we'd want to participate in, for sure, but there are the negative reflections of these higher states. And that's what we're going to be dealing with on this planet where polarity is so tremendously emphasized. What we really need here is air conditioning in Scandinavia. So what you got to do is jump in your car and just keep driving. Okay, anyway, now look at this. This is very interesting. This next one. Now, if anybody who's listening, and we have a few people who are with us. Uh-oh. Ah, there it goes. Whew. Every time I see the text disappear, I get nervous. Okay, like there it is, disappearing. What's going to happen in the future? Okay. We hope, who's we when he's talking? We, the masters of the wisdom, who he says, you all overestimate us, we find it amusing how much you think we can do as you overestimate us, I mean, I think the greatest overestimation that exists in the Western world is that Jesus is God. Yes, everybody's God. Everything is God. And pantheism, an enlightened pantheism, is true. But Jesus is not equivalent to God Almighty, which is why the Christ in the body of Jesus said, "Why call you me good? Only God is good." Someone had called him good. Mm-hmm. And he used the moment as a teaching point, So, above all, we have to keep this sense of proportion. Because for students of our type, it's so easy to fall into glamour. What is glamour? I tried to make it simple for myself. When you look at the world and the inner worlds, you make some things too big and other things too little. And they're just out of proportion. And I used the analogy when I was a kid. I used to like to go to the amusement park. And I went into the fun house. Yeah, probably wouldn't be so much fun right now. But I went into the fun house, and there were all of these funny mirrors that make you look really funny. Your legs are this big, and your head is this big, and you know what I mean? That's what glamour does. It blows things up and makes things smaller than they should be, and you don't see with a true eye.
There is one distinction like that the things what are related to oneself, one makes too little, and the things which are related to others, one makes too big.
That's a good point. Your sins are horrible. Mine, well, not too
well, yes, they don't care about that in hierarchy.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah.
You point out someone's morality and say, oh, well, the masters aren't concerned with that, And that's why, we're told that the basis of a good character, I'm not pretending, but anyway, the basis of a good character is the foundation of everything else we might build. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, we're going to be the blasted tower. Does anybody know, is it the 16th tarot card? Something like that? I can't remember. But the tower is falling down and everybody's falling out of the tower. And I was once in the Leaning Tower of Pisa, long ago. And you keep climbing till you reach the top. And I wondered, how long can this thing keep leaning? Maybe by now it is no longer leaning. I don't know. Maybe something has happened. But it didn't look very promising for the future. Anyway, we, the masters, hope during the next 500 years to present several such groups to the one initiator, maybe, even Sanat Kumara himself. All who are in these groups have taken the first initiation, as have so many thousands of people in the world today. As a matter of fact, he says by 2025, we're not far away, the numbers will be in the millions. That was his prediction. Millions of first-degree initiates. Many have taken the second initiation. Now this is very interesting, particularly those who are working in fifth-ray ashrams and in third-ray ashrams, for such disciples are distinguished by a lack of emotional emphasis. See, so some things are easy for some people and some things are hard for those same people. Like I say, my impression is that to take the third degree, even though the numbers are good, might be quite difficult for the third or fifth ray type because of their tendency to analyze and split everything up into pieces so you don't see things as a whole. See, illusion has to be dispelled and you have to see the wholeness of things, the oneness of things. It's very rough for the average third or fifth ray type. But then, the 2-4-6ers, when they're taking the second initiation, it's about emotions, and they particularly emphasize the emotions. All right. So, he gives us some further ideas. This is really, this compilation is perhaps not complete, but it's got some really good stuff. And for some reason, I'm going blank again. Okay. All right. Now here, I don't know where this comes in, but I'm going to turn to it. The will is an expression of the law of sacrifice. Remember when I said that after the second degree, around the second degree, the will is emphasized, identification, Sanat Kumara, Shambhala, all of those higher things relating to the other end of the Antakarana, as it were. The will is an expression of the law of sacrifice. There's a lot of sacrifice that prepares you at the second initiation to make the big sacrifices at the fourth initiation. This involves the astral plane and relates to the second initiation. You know what? I'm going to do it on the other computer here, just to see if I can find this. This is in Dyna 2. So I'm going to try to be safe. The will is an expression of the law of sacrifice. Sacrifice. Okay. Now let's see if I can see some of the other ones that are around there. Okay. Here we go. I'm sorry. Here it is. Oh, these are wonderful. These are points of revelation. And while I don't dare to try to show them to you now on this particular computer, this is the first initiation is the following, as that is relevant to students of our type as well. Energy follows thought, and the I directs the energy. This involves the physical plane and relates to the first initiation and concerns the Ajna center and the so-called third eye. Then comes the one we looked at, and that is the will is an expression of the law of sacrifice. So think about it. You've got the will petals in your egoic lotus. You cannot take initiation before the will petals are really opening. That involves sacrifice. They're also called the sacrifice petals. What is sacrifice anyway? Well, in esoteric psychology too, he really goes into it, and ultimately it's all about making sacred. It's not like painfully having something pried out of our grasping hands. It's giving up the lesser for the greater. Okay? And then one that is a tough one. Oh, these are wonderful things. The monad is to the planetary logos what the third eye is to man. Ponder well and hard, right? This involves the mental plane, relates to the third initiation, and concerns the head center and the light of purpose. And it goes on, it's wonderful. But I won't, go on with the fourth and the fifth. But just to say, go to Dyna 2 around page 369 and 370, and these points of revelation. Remember this about the Dyna books, that especially Dyna 2 is a manual for initiation. It is a compressed manual for initiation, with its formulas, its hints, its points of revelation, and its 6 meditations of a group nature. So sometimes, DK says, well, the books I've written, they should last for a generation. But what does he mean by a generation? What is a spiritual generation? It's not necessarily just 25 years or 20 years where you have children and they have children and that's that. It's something more. The secret doctrine, is that lasting? I mean, who can fathom the secret doctrine? See, and it's still around, even though it was written, more than 100 years ago, right? Okay, so it's a real point of inspiration. Now, let's go on. The main idea here is that energy emanating from Shambhala no less, is involved in the second initiation. Now, sorry. Sometimes we think, well, we're in the Blue Rose Sisterhood, we're trying to develop love. But remember, the kind of love that comes from the monad and from Shambhala is tremendous. There the Great One stands, breathing forth love eternal, light supernal, peaceful silent will. This is going on in Shambhala. A very, very high quality of love. Okay, so the second point of revelation is correlating with the second initiation, which I believe, every true reader of the Tibetan, every true practitioner of his meditations should pay attention to, because the odds are, 10 to 1, that the average person who's a really adhering reader and follower of the Tibetan is preparing for the second degree. That's my own estimation. And then, goodness, zip, it can go very fast. Did any of you read, sorry, about Milarepa, the yogi saint of Tibet? So he begins as sort of a powerful occultist, able to basically kill people. You know how those houses used to be in Tibet? They were up on poles or whatever kind of wooden supports. So this group of people treated his family very badly. And, they had suffered tremendous loss. So what does he do? But they can whip it up. He sends some kind of thunderstorm. And it basically tears down the house and everybody falls to their death. Now, it starts out that way because he was using those powers around the time of the second degree. But it just becomes so obvious that he passes through the third degree and the fourth degree, and maybe he even becomes a master. And at the end, he's poisoned, and he knows who his poisoner is and all that. It's a bit like the Buddha. The Buddha knew the pork was no good, but the farmer gave it to him, and so he couldn't refuse, although he made his disciples not eat it. And that was what precipitated his final illness, at the age of 80. Very interesting about 8, remember? Here's the Antikarana, it looks like an 8. Higher and lower like an 8. Here's the Buddha, here's Mercury, he's Mercury, the guardian of the 8th gate. He lives to be 80 years old. That number 8 is tremendous. Mercury is so connected with the number 8. The Earth is 777, Mars is 666, Venus is 555, and I think Mercury is 888. So the Buddha, as a third-ray monad, he comes from Mercury, at least one of his stops along the way. So how very interesting that he is, he's born at the Scorpio full moon, number 8. He achieves his enlightenment of the 6th degree at the number, at the full moon with the Scorpio full moon. Taurus and Scorpio, the moon is in Scorpio. And then he dies at that time. Taurus, Scorpio, with the number 8. So sometimes our lives are so emblematic of the occult forces that lie behind us, DK says that every life you build a geometrical figure. Your whole life can be summed up in a geometrical figure. Rather ugly and not very well balanced or anything in the beginning, and tending towards beauty at the end. So, when you're living an archetypal life, like the Buddha was, archetypes are great, beautiful patterns that determine divine purpose. Now, none of us is in correlation with an archetype yet. We have our own monadic archetype, right? But down here in this world, we can't get it yet. But one day, like the Buddha or like the Christ or like one of those great souls, we will be living the geometrical, archetypal life. And, then it'll be saying that God geometrizes and the grand geometrician will be our model. Okay. So anyway, Shambhala, the first contact, the second point of revelation, now notice, we're not even waiting to the third degree. It concerns the first contact of the initiated disciple with the energy emanating from Shambhala and transmitted to him via the master of the ashram, with which he is at this time associated. Now, the master of the ashram, we are told, is the monad of the ashram. The master is the monad of the ashram. So Shambhala to the master. He has not yet reached the stage where in direct contact is permitted with Shambhala, with the monad, because it's still the second degree, but still needs the ashramic protection which the master provides, even as humanity needs the protection of the Christ principle at this time very, very strongly, which gets back, of course, to our purpose within the Blue Rose Sisterhood. At the indicated second initiation, this is really interesting. At the indicated second initiation, he receives a quality of stimulation which enables him to see the astral plane as it essentially is. See, at first we were just totally confused. Veils, miasmas, clouds, storms, all the rest of it. And we don't see it, not really. Or we see it and we think it's real. And that's very dangerous. There's so many people channeling the masters. And they say, and I say, they write in purple ink. It's always my warning sign. I like purple ink, but on the other hand, when I see the words of the masters in purple ink, I'm a little bit suspicious. Okay, so see the astral plane as it is. With this revelation, also the recognition of the basic human necessity, and here comes the second degree, to make it, the astral plane, holy, or to render whole that which provides the most disturbing element in the existence of mankind. So we begin to see, don't we, why this second degree is so tough, and why we're all caught in it, and because of our particular planetary logos in his progress, and even the solar logos with his very strong astral bias, it's going to take a long time to work this out. Okay, your thoughts, your questions, and Tuya, did you say something that I'm talking too much?
Well, we are having the dinner, so little by little we should start to close.
Okay, so we have a few people out there too who are watching, and if you have any questions, please write them down now, and we can see if we can address them. Do you understand how much interpretation every paragraph of Master Decay lends itself to? If you really go deep into what he's saying to all of us, look, you don't read my words carefully enough. That's what he says. And it's so true. We just, I read that book, and I read that book, and what's next? Some new novelty,
Yeah.
I've noticed that the Alice Bailey books have movement. In the average bookstore, they move so high you can't reach them, or so low you can't bend over. So, you know what I mean? They used to be eye level, but it's a sign of degeneration that people have this kind of what is it called? Attention deficit syndrome, ADS or whatever it's called. Yeah, dear.
Yes, I am thinking about the illumination of the mind, in that sense that when the mind is not illumined, it needs constant food. It just wants to have more and more and more. And then the more has reached, and then the mind starts to be illumined, then it is less and more essential things. Like when you look about the yogi who wants to contemplate, so the contemplation is not any huge big book. It can be only one word.
Right.
Like
Right.
the word self, and that's why it is so easy when we hear something that we repeat in the teaching, but to really gather that with the illumined mind, that it is enlightened, it is enlightening your inner world, and that's why then the less is the more important. The essential is the more important, to go deeper within. And that's why it's like the doors are, like the words are the doors. So that's why you don't want to have thousands, millions of doors. You want to have the one door within.
There's an old saying. You know what the saying is, don't you?
What?
There's an old saying, dear. Tell me what the saying is.
What?
I know, I'm just being silly. But it relates to your subject. A word to the wise is sufficient. One word to the wise is sufficient. It can open up a whole area. It can give the clue. We are seeking illumination. we are seeking a condition where the soul can really impress the mind. Master DK is a wonderful guide when it comes to that possibility. You can trust him. That's the thing. There's so many people that are writing off the top of their head, or wherever they're writing it from. You can't trust it. It sounds good, it sounds crazy, it sounds whatever. You need people you can trust. And when Master Morya, Master Kuthumi, and maybe Master DK, I don't know, but at least Morya and Kuthumi, they went supposedly in the year 1715 to the big hierarchical conclave. They said, we want to bring the ageless wisdom closer to humanity. So, their motive is so altruistic, even though there's a lot of trouble in bringing the ageless wisdom closer to humanity. So finally, as Tuya was saying the other day, a lot of masters protested, humanity is not ready, you can't do it, etc., etc., and Sanat Kumara gave his permission. And all of that, here comes Blavatsky, here comes DK, here comes the Theosophical Society, here comes the Secret Doctrine, here comes the Alice Bailey books. All of that because of that decision at that time to selflessly and at much sacrificial cost bring the ageless wisdom closer to humanity. So who can you trust? And you have to always think for yourself, but who can you really trust? Not someone who's channeling some angel that is from the cosmic astral plane or something, whatever. Keep a sense of proportion. When I see people out there talking to the Galactic Council, it's something our solar logos couldn't do. I say, okay, where's our sense of proportion? Where is it? And usually it leaves us when we want to be great. When we want to be the best, when we want to be so noticeable, so outstanding. That's when our sense of proportion leaves us. Mm. Or when we feel so miserable about ourselves that we can see no good thing, because of the Christian conviction of sin, as it is. We're born in sin, we die in sin, only, believing in Christ can save us, etc., etc. So, DK says, let us, as students of the ageless wisdom, have common sense. Let us have common sense. And he basically says that the sixth-ray type doesn't have it. That's the thing they have to really cultivate, is the common sense. But the seventh ray is loaded with common sense. And there comes the possibility of a better way. Okay, dear, is it almost time to finish? Is there anybody out there in our group? Unfortunately, we can't really talk back and forth, unfortunately, but if you want to write something, any question, I'm happy, foolishly, to try to respond. When we have our webinars, I say, okay, look, here's the subject. Now, if you don't want to ask a question on the subject, ask a question or make a statement on anything in occultism, because everything's related to everything else. So, I'm convinced of that. If I'm at point A, and in this sphere of knowledge, there's some obscure point B somewhere, I can get there. And, everything is like a unity related to everything else. Okay. Well, that may be it. Let's see what's going on tonight here. Tuya will lead. Oh, the sense of touch. Almost forgot that. The sense of touch is peculiarly an astral sense related to Neptune, peculiarly, and particularly related to the second initiation. Here's the sequence. Hear the voice of the soul, feel the touch of the soul, see the soul. That's the first sequence. Initiation 1, hear. Initiation 2, touch. Initiation 3, feel. There are certain sequences like that. Know, express, reveal, destroy, resurrect. That's one of those sequences. But I know we've all had the voice of conscience, haven't we? You shouldn't be doing that. You should be doing that. You are remiss if you don't do that. You have to speak up. You have to be brave, whatever. You should never do that, etc., etc. This is the voice of the soul. But have we felt the touch of the soul? Tuya?
What?
Have you felt the touch of the soul?
Yes.
Would you like to say, I'm going to turn on Tuya what she does. Would you like to say a little more about that?
Oh, well, I am saying that we should now start our break.
This is time for the break?
And
sounds like
now it is the touch of the
But
break.
we didn't get to the sense of taste. That's the fourth one. Are we allowed? Okay. Anyway, you know, something comes over you, right? With this touch of the soul. You're sitting there in meditation, whatever you're doing, suddenly you feel something, your perception clarifies.
I think in meditation this is very obvious.
That you feel that, right?
Yeah.
And then comes in the initiation chamber the sight of the soul. Is it a wheel with 9 or 12 spokes? Is it a lotus? Is it a glorious looking angel? It's all three of those things. And that is the sight that comes in the initiation chamber. There's always going to be sight. And it's especially involved at the third initiation, but in the chamber you see the solar angel. Sometimes the solar angel, we're told, in the initiation process, plays its part. The solar angel takes its place in a geometrical arrangement while the initiate is passing through the ceremony. So, basic thing is to carry your notebook, okay, or your tablet these days. I've got a little blue notebook here, very small. I have a red one in the other pocket, and if a good thought or something I think is a good thought crosses my mind, I open it, I number it, and I write it down. And he basically said, take note of all spiritual or psychic phenomena. Be like a fifth-rate scientist. Don't say, oh, something happened to me, I forget what it was. But write it down specifically. And then all the pieces will come together and we'll see why we were passing through what we were passing through. So I would always carry a little notebook. That even tablets are kind of, they're very good, but you know what I mean, you have to start them and all that. A notebook is just, that's it. Small one. Okay, friends, I want to thank you for being with us there, out there in the world somewhere. And tonight, Tuya is going to lead a meditation.
Yeah, we have actually two.
What, dear?
We have two. So we have at 5 p.m. GMT is the meditation related to second initiation, and then at around 9:30 is just short.
9:30, which is 6:30 GMT.
Oh, right, see, 6:30.
What's happening? What happened?
There is a message.
Oh, a message. Pivy, okay, hey, thank you. Okay, have a question. As one travels along from one initiation to another, are you 100% completed on the previous level? Good question. Before you move on to the next level, and the answer is no. Just like the petals are not 100% unfolded before the next one starts to unfold, So we have hangovers from previously imperfectly accomplished requirements of the previous stage. So although, let's say, at the first initiation we managed to get that physical body and its instinctual nature in reasonable control, it's not perfect. At the second initiation, we managed to get the worst glamours out of the way and our worst emotional reactions out of the way, but no, it's not perfect. And it hangs on and is gradually perfected as we go through the other initiations. Now, here's a very interesting thing. You've got 3, do I dare? If I do this, it may be that you lose me, but you won't lose my voice, okay? So I'm going to try something here. Probably by the time I get there, I won't know why I did it. What I've just done is put up a, it's going to come. Okay, yes dear?
We have quite a lot to do.
A lot to do? Okay,
Yeah,
hold on. I'm just trying to answer Paivi's question here. Notice, well, this is too big. So there we go. Here's the egoic lotus. Unfortunately, Tuya's excellent egoic lotus I don't have in front of me. I just have a little one. But the last 3 petals, which are marked in red, at the, here's the hint, at the first initiation, there is some unfoldment of the 7th petal. At the second initiation, there is some unfoldment of the 8th petal and more of the 7th. At the third initiation, there is continuing unfoldment of the 7th, continuing unfoldment of the 8th, and complete unfoldment of the 9th petal, and they all unfold finally together. Now that is the hint about being still imperfect after we have handled some of the major problems relating to any particular initiatory degree. I've studied a lot of people. I've studied myself. I see where we all are. I recognize the imperfection. I recognize we're in there at about 75, 80%, and it gets better and better as subsequent initiations go along. So you don't have to be fastidious about it, like, if I don't do this, I can't move on. It's an overlap, 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 until there is a final perfecting of the 9 petals at the third initiation. But what about the synthesis petals? They're not perfected yet. You don't have that wonderful, complete sense of synthesis which comes through the gathering of immense knowledge between the third and the fourth initiation. But by the fourth initiation, boom, they will burst open and the jewel will be revealed and much more perfection will be had, even though some unfoldment existed before. I hope that kind of answers the question. We do not have to perfect before we move on. We get a good deal of it going, and then we overlap and keep going, and then more unfolds behind us. And probably if we look at our lives, we'll see that that is the case. Another question? Sorry for... Oh, no, so no problem. Yeah, right, okay, you bet. Glad you were here. And, I'm very happy about this YouTube thing. I didn't realize that you could have sort of live chat, which is good, because that means that even though we don't have a voice coming back to us like we do on GoToWebinar, we can have your responses that are written, and we can use music and all that kind of thing, which we could never do because of the small bandwidth of a webinar. So somehow the technology will catch up with what we want to do. Okay? All right, thank you, everybody. Thank you out there, everybody, Asha and Veronique and whoever else may be there. And we will work tonight in meditation. All the best to everybody. Lots of love, and I'll have this on. Now, I've got about 12 programs of what we've done in the Blue Rose Mystery Week, our third one. You can just go to YouTube. You can download the programs. You'll see Blue Rose Mystery Week or Blue Rose Sisterhood Mystery Week, and you can, just participate or play them or do whatever as you might like to do. Okay, see you before long. I think 8 o'clock Finnish time, 5 o'clock English time, GMT. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.